So on Unity Hub, if you are right at the start, you can choose, when we create a project, you can choose one of the cores. So 2D core, 3D core, something like that. And we have been originally doing this just to create from a blank template and then putting NPCs in there, etc., and then going to download first person. What I've done is I'm going to click on the first person here. And you have to click download template. What I'm going to call this, info system, because we want information from our NPC. So I'm going to call this an info system, and then click create, and this will create it all already automatically with a first person controller and some environment. So you can just create some environment if you've just got a blank template, or it's entirely up to you. Yeah, you'll walk up to them and they will give you information or disinformation. Oh, this is recording. Cool. As I said, I'll put these recordings up on, I'll put the portal one up on Discord as well. I still need to record the other one. So hopefully you've jumped back onto mix mode. If you haven't remembered how to use mix mode, write down notes. Always helps. So hopefully you've stuck a character into your scene with an idle animation that is looping. If you want to check if that animation is looping, remember you can check the animation within the project. So under the project tab, click on it, and go onto the animation tab, go down to the bottom and make sure you can loop out and click apply. Then make sure in the animator that is the first state that your character is animating on when you're going to start and you press play. Lovely. So as you can see, I've got this nice little kind of setup here. What I'm going to do is just change my layout, tool, lovely, and then we can all the different bits on here. So that's already got. I'm not really worried about that. What is that called? Good, lovely. Where's my character? There we are. Lovely, cool. I should be able to press play straight away and be able to look around and walk. Fantastic. Stairs as well. Lovely, brilliant, cool. So we've already got that template all done and dusted there. Obviously, you could try this with third person. You can download the third person template if you wanted to. I know Gab's doing the Bloodborne, so you might want to go third person with it. Entirely up to him. Lovely. Okay, so I'm going to cheat, and I'm not going to use an NPC. I'm going to use a cube and call it NPC. So your games will look a lot better than mine. So what I'm going to do is right click, select 3D object cube, and let's move our cube place. And all I'd say is whatever your character has been called from Mixer mode, I'll just rename them as NPC. This is just obviously your standard prototyping at the moment. Yeah. Lovely. Materials. Folder. Materials. Lovely. So I've got my, hopefully you've got your character. When you press play, your character, mine's the red cube to represent my NPC. Hope yours is named NPC. And you can walk up to your character and number one, make sure they've got a collider on them. Just make sure that we don't walk through them. Bits like that. A capture collider will do the job. Give you a couple of seconds just to check that, make sure the capture collider is covering them entirely. And that is just going to work as a capture collider. That isn't going to be a trigger or anything. We're going to do a separate game object within the scene that will be our trigger. So don't worry about that. Okay, so if you have a look at my hierarchy here, I've got a couple of elements that are, because this is a starter kit, I've got things like this, where I've got touch controls and things like that, if we were going to convert this to mobile. I also have a UI event system here as well that's giving me where I can, what the scroll wheel does once I'm in a UI menu and things like this. I'm not going to, well, all I'm going to do is leave these alone. If you've got something that physically pops up on your screen like this, I would just disable it. Okay, just disable it now. So you've got something that pops up on your screen like this. As I said, I'm using a Unity template. Just disable it. We're going to use a brand new canvas. We're going to create a brand new canvas. So you can have multiple canvases with different things. Okay, it doesn't have to be that one canvas. Okay. So if you've got a canvas for the end of your game, wicked. Well, that's not going to trigger until the end of your game. Hence why once we've been scripting this before and triggering canvases to pop up before, we trigger the canvas and not the UI itself. Okay, because it's the canvas that's controlling that UI. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and you guessed it, I'm going to go down to UI and I'm going to choose a canvas. If I went straight to like slider or scroll bar or panel or image or something like that, it would add it to a canvas that I already have. Okay, so if you want multiple canvases for like UI or dialogue at the start and then you've got a UI that pops up at the end, you're going to definitely need a separate canvas. Okay, so again, it's good to just note this down and write it down, or again, you can watch this video later on. Cool. And what I'm going to do, because this is an information system, I'm going to be getting information from my NPC. I'm going to call this info canvas. You could call it start game canvas, start task canvas, objective canvas. That sounds better. I'm just going for a nice short one. Cool, lovely. So what we're going to do is, because we want everything to come out of this canvas, I'm going to right click on the canvas. We're going to go to UI again, and this time we're going to choose panel. Okay, so right click on canvas, that canvas that you've just created, go down to UI and then click on panel. And if you're in your game tab, that will go grey. We can edit and modify it. So the best way to edit this, I've found, is by going into 2D mode. So if we click on 2D, it goes into 2D mode. We then can scroll out, move our mouse around, and then we can see that on a flat plane. So we can actually edit this properly. There we go. Fantastic. Cool. So first things I'm going to do is I'm going to use my rep tool. So which is the 1, 2, 3, 4 tool down. And I'm just going to position this, and you can position this wherever you like. Put it down a little bit, in a little bit, in a little bit. And if you're unsure of how that looks, you can always click back on your game tab, and as you can see here, I can see that it's taking a nice bit of space, but it looks a bit high up, so I might just lower it slightly. So I can use my X and Y axes here just to drop that a little bit. Lovely. That looks a little better because that's my game view. That's what my first person is going to see. And you can have yours down below. I now, every time I try and think of a dialogue system and how it comes out, I just think of all cutscenes with no dialogue system that I can't see. So I have to, and I literally, when I was going through this yesterday, I had to Google where they put like Skyrim text and stuff like that, and Skyrim's at the bottom and things like that. But yeah, my brain just was like, oh yeah. Couldn't think of one dialogue system. Oh yeah, and it pops up at the bottom. Yeah. But then Then I was thinking, does it pop up at the top or is it at the bottom?
Well, I think maybe both. It's possible. Then again, you have like games where it's like you have the panel and then obviously the picture of the character, up and bottom.
Well, we're going to be doing that today. We're going to be doing, so if you want a character sprite panel, we can add that in as well. So thinking about that, it might be a little bit big. You might just scooch that down just a teeny bit. Lovely. And what I'm also going to do is, because I'm on my panel at the moment, it says it's stretched and it's not really linked to anywhere. It's not anchored anywhere. So what I'm going to do is anchor it right at the top, and I will probably have to drag this down again. So if I hold Alt on my keyboard, you can see that my keyboard is like changing. You can see that my anchors are changing when I often press Alt. So if I hold on Alt, click that, it's going to anchor it at the top. But then I can just pull this down slightly, but it will still be anchored at the top. Lovely, just like that. Cool. But as you can see, the anchor is still from the top. And this helps for any kind of UI issues, and we can change the screen size there, and we can see that it's going to play ball with us. That's all good. Wicked. Okay, let's have another look. What we're going to look on here. So the colour as well of the panel. So at the moment, I think that's white, see-through. You can actually go to the colour under the image of panel. And we have got an A channel, a channel that says A at the bottom here. And that's our alpha channel. So if we can click and drag, we can make that more opaque or more transparent of how we see fit. I'm going to make it a little bit more opaque, not completely solid, but just to make sure that my text will be readable, that lands on top of that. And obviously you can change the colour if you want. I think we'll just keep that as panel as well, it doesn't really matter. Cool. So once we've got the panel how we want it and how it's looking, we're going to right click on panel. So not info canvas, we're right clicking on panel this time. We're going to go to UI and we're going to create an image. And that image pops right in the middle there. This time, this is going to be our character icon. So number one, we're going to go to that image and call this character icon. So name it character icon. And then you can size appropriately how you want. In a little bit. Yeah, that works for me. Cool. So what we did was got character icon, and again, can we see where this is anchored? We should anchor this really, because where I put my picture's essentially in the top left-hand corner. So again, we should do this first, then move it. Sorry. So I'm going to hold Alt again. Make sure this is in the top left-hand corner. I know that pops up in the top left-hand corner like that, but we can just quickly shift it to where we want. But it's still essentially anchored in that place. Lovely. Okay, so once we've got that, we need some text in here. So all the characters we go up to it and go up to the text will appear as well. We're going to right click on panel again, go to UI, and this time we're going to go to text. Oh, they only got Text Mesh Pro now. What is this? Oh, is it? Fantastic. Cool. Yeah, I don't really want to use Text Mesh Pro. That means you have to download a load of other stuff. I don't want to. So we're still going to use text. Ignore Text Mesh Pro. We don't ignore it, but you just have to put different things into script it. Oh, that means if they move into legacy, that means they're going to get rid of it. Lame. Why is button in there? Just leave it alone, Unity. Cool, so yeah, UI, legacy, then text. Sorry, I use a different version of Unity 2021, but annoying. So cool, there we go. I'm going to call this text. And then we can call, just call this text. That's fine. I am then going to make this box as big as that and there. That looks good. Obviously, my text looks miniature. I can hardly see my text, so I'm going to sort this out. Number one, I think I might change the color to more of black. Lovely. And then I'm going to change the text size to 28. Looks good. I think if you do have any kind of sort of like dialogue or objective system that pops up within your advanced gameplay systems, I don't want to see this basicness. Jump on the Photoshop, get some Photoshop tutorials under your belt, make it look pretty as. Download some fonts, make it fit into your scene. Cool, lovely. So, I am happy with this. So now what we need to do is, back in the day, you used to be able to add, I'm just seeing if it's here. No, it's not here either. So for some reason, there used to be this component called Canvas Group. And what's great about Canvas Group, it's got one good thing on it. So what we're going to do, if we go to Info Canvas, we're going to go to Add Component, and we're going to go type in Group, and you can see something called Canvas Group. And if you click on Canvas Group, you can see that Canvas Group, once added to that component, it's got something called an alpha. What you can do is actually fade in and fade it away. Why that's not default, why they don't suggest to do that anyway, to fade in and fade out UI. Oh, God, beats me, absolutely beats me. Anyway, we're going to be creating an animation for this to fade away and fade back in. Or fade out to fade in, kind of thing, yeah. Okay. So we did, hang on, I think we did do any animations last week? What we did? No, I thought we didn't. You look at animations?
I think we did the cycle point. Then we did some animation after it.
What, in Unity?
No.
Oh, no, yeah. I was going to say, actually, in Unity. It's like me doing wireless. Cool, lovely. So what we're going to do, because this can go from 1 to being fully colour to 0 to being faded in, we can actually, as I said, we can fade this in like that. It's going to be nice and lovely. So what we're going to make sure that we have is we are going to go to Window, and we're going to go to Animation and go to Animation. And let's just pump that down there like that. Using all of the Unity today. What I'm going to do as well is just to keep everything nice and tidy, I'm going to, in my assets, under my project tab, I'm going to right click, create a new folder, and just call this animations. So I've got a place to save them. Okay, so it all goes wrong, we don't know where they are. We've got a folder called animations. Lovely, so now we've got that folder. If we click on Info Canvas, we can see that it says to begin animating Info Canvas, create an animator and an animation clip. Well, we can click create, and it's going to be like, where do you want to save this? Well, we're going to want to save this in animations. And we're going to call this animation UI fade in. And click save. And that will give us our animation. And what you'll be able to see is that it also adds an animator onto that canvas as well. Lovely. Right, so what we can do is, let's have a look here if we can actually. Can go to canvas, we can go to alpha. Lovely, that's good. Cool. So there's two ways of doing this. You can just click record and then change the alpha here of Canvas Group. But if you want more of a step-by-step process. What we can do is go to add property, and then everything here is labeled under our info canvas of what we've added, components. And one of those components is obviously canvas group. We can click on canvas group, and then we can see alpha. Obviously, that's where we can change our fade in and our fade out. So we're going to click a plus there, and it creates two keyframes that essentially are default of what alpha is up to, which is 1, which is it, or 100% opacity. Okay. So what we're going to do is that last keyframe is perfect. Unity's done half of our job for us. So what we're going to do is we are going to click record. So click the record button on our animation. We are going to click on that keyframe, backspace it to delete it. So we're still recording. And then we're going to change our alpha, which is now turned into a dark red, to 0 and put enter. Once we click unrecord, we can press play, and there we go, our UI fades in. And we've created a fade in. Just like that. Just a second long. Aesthetically pleasing. Cool, I'll let you note that down very, very quickly. If you need to do screenshots, do screenshots. Lovely. Okay, so in order to for this to be sort of programmed with a script, what we're going to do is go to. It's worrying that my animations folder says it's empty. Why did that not save in there? It's annoying. Let's quickly jump that. There. Cool. So what we're going to do is Windows Animation and Animator. And we can just drag this down next to animations.
Fade in want to be our default.
Will it?
Yeah, sure.
Remember, what happens on entry? What is entry?
Well, it's like it's the beginning. Well, it's the beginning of once you hit play.
Yeah. So as soon as we hit play, that's going to fade in.
Oh right, yeah.
So we're going to want. So yeah, we don't want that.
So do we need to create another animation? Nothing.
So I'm going to show you a very creative thing. So what we're going to do is number one, we're going to right click and we are going to create a new empty state. So just right click in your animator, go to create state in empty, and it will just say new state. We're then going to right click on new state, or empty state, whatever it says for you, and we're going to set that as default. What we can then do is, let's look at our UI fading. If we click on that, so it's got like a blue halo around it, and our animator, we can see that the speed is at 1. Okay. If we Control and D that that fading, we've got another one. And what we can do is actually, in fact, change the speed to -1, and then just reverse it. So you've created a fade out. And all we need to do is just rename this fade out. So UI fading, and we're going to change this to UI fade out.
I already made a fade out one, so
That's quite exciting. Yeah. Kind of cutting it down the time.
yeah.
And do you remember we did that with walking backwards animation when we did? Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wasn't that when we parameter that we set?
Yeah, we created a speed parameter because obviously
Yeah.
that speed has a speed of simply one. That speed because it's more complex animation. And we had to create a multiplier for it, so it didn't just have but because this is UI, it's simply 0 to 1.
Yeah.
So there's nothing in between. Cool. So we've got our fade out, we've got our fade in, and we've got our new state. We can leave this alone for now because we're going to call these up separately. We'll call these up from the project. Okay. Or even we can call these up from the animator as well. We can swap around what jumps in, or actually while our controller can play these. You know, like we play sound with one shot, we can do that with animations. Okay. Real simple animations. The only other time you may do it with more complex animations is if you're handling cutscenes. But we're not doing that for now. So we can call these up completely separate. They don't need transitions or anything. They can play. They can just live in the animator because they are live in the game because they're living in info canvas and this animator here, which is in our game. Cool, lovely. So what we need to make sure is in our animations, we need to click on fade in, and we can see that this has got a loop time. This is one thing that I couldn't figure out the other day. I'm going to uncheck loop time. I don't know, and essentially fade out is the same thing as a duplicate of it. So it's going to not loop either. We don't want them to loop. So we find the animation in our animations folder and just uncheck loop time. Lovely. So what we're going to do now is jump into our scripts folder. This default folder, this default Unity project already has a script folder, but you might need to create a folder and call it scripts. Then what I'm going to do is right click, go to create C# script, and I'm going to name this UI trigger event. I'm then going to double check and make sure my Unity is playing ball. No, it's not. So I have to choose Visual Studio again. There we go. No. Leave that for now. So what we're going to do is double click on our UI trigger event. Yep, I'm happy with that. We don't need those. We need to start. No, we don't. We just need. Cool. Okay, so we need lots of variables for this because we've got lots of variables or game objects within our game. So the first one we're going to do is public and text. That will give us a red line initially. Actually, let's just do that right. Let's do that at the start. Let's say right at the top, using Unity Engine .ui, so we don't get any red lines. And then we're going to create a variable public text, and this is going to be our info text. So our text that we've added to our panel, or info text UI. I forgot that it gives you prompts. We then have the character icon. So that's going to be a public, and that's an image. Remember, because that's the component that was added onto it. So public image, and we can call this character icon UI. So you'll be able to change that as we go through. We'll then need to dictate that it's going to be a different sprite. So we need to say public sprite, and I just call this custom. Did I call it custom sprite or custom UI? Custom icon, I think I called it. There we go. Call it custom icon. We're then going to do something. Do you remember we did something like we used to do like serialized field? I don't really use serialized field anymore. We don't should. We're going to do something different. We're going to do blocky brackets. And we're going to call this one called text area. This will allow us to write in our text right into our inspector. And this is starting to get what scriptable objects can do for us. Okay. So if I go to text area and then we can say public, and this is going to be a string, and this is going to be called info message. That is going to be our text that we write that goes into our info text UI. So this is essentially the information we put into our inspector, and then we'll go into our game as the UI. So don't get confused by the two. That's why we have two of them. We'll then have a public ball. You can make this private afterwards, but I'm just having these as public for now so you can see them of what they will do. So what we're going to have is a private ball. This is going to be called remove after exit. So we will have a ball that's initially at false. It's always good to have balls as false. As we walk into our trigger, our UI will fade in. As soon as we come out, it will fade out. Okay, but we need a ball to control that. We're then going to have another public ball after that. Lots of bits and bobs today. And we're going to have a disable timer after. And initially it's going to be false as well. And then we can create a public float for that saying, oh, how long is our disable timer going to be? So how long are we going to have that UI there for? At the moment, we can say 1 second. So 1F is a float. Because it's public, we can edit it within. Oh, I don't know why I need an enable timer. So we then need our animator, so public animator. And we're going to call this our info anim because it's our information animating. And then right at the end, our only private variable is going to be our box collider. Because we're going to have a separate collider, we're going to have a completely separate box that your character can walk into. Okay, and there's reasons for that, and I'm going to just go to explain why we're doing that separately. I'm just going to call this object collider. That'll be fine. Cool. So the whole point with doing this is to get kind of multi-use out of this one script. Number one, we can put an NPC. So this is my NPC, big old boy here, and let's say I walk into this square here, this collider, and create a separate collider. Okay. If I walk into this collider, then the UI will pop up, and it looks like that character is talking to me. We can also use this collider. So the example I did for myself yesterday was my first person character is going to a crime scene and there's a policeman at the door initially. So walk in there, walk into the collider, the policeman says to me, oh, the crime scene is absolutely brutal in there, kind of sets the narrative of, oh, this serial killer is absolutely right in place. I can then, in my game, as when my character walks into the scene, as I walk into, let's say, the murder scene area, I can walk into another collider, which is the same script but being changed because of the text area, and you can say, find 5 clues, stuff like that. So that's why we're using the boxes in different areas. So we can use that same script, because before we've attached the scripts to the player, that's kind of made it this one-use time. Okay, so this is where we're starting to think about scriptable objects and have it for multiple use. That's heavy, is that what we have to learn? I just kicked it out of that. But hopefully you can see what I'm going on about. So as my visual. Okay, so we can use that trigger again and again in all different places. Okay. So if your character walks too far, or you've got someone who's just trying to run off the area or run off the level, for example, you can have a message saying, please turn back or stuff like that. And you can always have that popping up as a message. You don't always need the character icon. Again, because it's a variable, we can just disable that. We can just pseudocode it out and it just doesn't appear for find the 5 objects. But as soon as we talk to a character, we can have that icon pop up again. That's that character, okay? But we can always use that panel to come back and forth. This is how we've got to start thinking about developing our games, of how we can have one script have multiple uses across our game. Okay? So a lot of variables there, but it will do a lot of work for us. Okie dokie. So first things first is we can use start, but we're going to use awake because awake is always a slightly different to start because it's at the start of the game. Awake is there even before the game begins. Okay, so even if as your game is loading up, awake is already what it says on the tin, already awake. So what we're going to say is we just type in awake, and you can see there it's going to give us a little prompt saying, oh well, that's a method. And it is. We can just quickly press enter. And we have that private void awake there. So what's going to become awake? Well, it's going to be that box collider or our object collider, and we want that. So, well, exactly. There we go. If it's saying object collider, game object or get game object, yeah, that's fine. I've got no problem with that. That's absolutely perfect. To have those little prompts. So our first one is going to be on trigger enter. So what happens when we enter our trigger? Again, we need to remember our tags. So let's go over to here to make sure my player is actually tagged as player. They are. Thank you, Unity, for the default FPS controller. Make sure your player is actually tagged as player. So what we're going to say is if other.tag is equal to our player, the flavor that we always use. And we're going to leave that for now. Because what we're going to do is we're going to write a separate method for that so it works. Because I've had too many times where things don't work on me and I've been recording it. So I'll double check this. So great. So the next thing we're going to do is write on trigger exit. And again, it's if other dot tag is equal to our. Cool. So under this, we need two methods that are going to work in favour of this, and we're going to create a method for enabling our information and removing or disabling. What I'll call it down here. Removing info. Cool. First things first, though, is because we have a timer here, is we're going to use something, and I think James asked me about this the other day, but it might be in a different context. We're going to use something called coroutine, okay, where something is displayed for an amount of time and then fades away, okay, and that's what we're going to do. So our first thing we're going to do is, if we ever create a method that is a coroutine, so it's a timed method or something that's there for an amount of time, we're going to call it an enumerator. We have seen this before, and I believe I remember what we did before. Oh, I know, the depth of our character. So under 2.5D, so our character's running across. And because the character's falling too quickly, we can catch it in the collider.
Yeah.
So I think we made it stop the collider really big, and so as soon as it touches it, we gave it an enumerator of like 1 second, and then it gets to restart. Okay, so this enumerator is going to be our enable info. Don't worry about the red line under enable info. I'm aware. So, first things first, we are going to say our object collider, which is our box collider, dot enabled is going to equal false. And it's going to equal false at the moment because it's not in the trigger yet. We're not in the trigger yet. It's all dormant, laying dormant until then. Okay. Once we've got that, we are going to we want it to fade in. So we're going to go. So it's almost like we put this together, or I put them together of like I almost like how I literally walk in my office and then I'm like, right, so the first thing the player's going to do is walk into the box. Okay, cool. So that's false. Then what's going to happen once I walk into the box? What's the next thing? My UI is going to fade in. Cool. So we need to play that UI. So what we do is go to info anim, because that's what we called it. And this time we can say dot play. So it's almost like a play one shot. And we are going to call it, well, it's a string. So it's exactly how you named it in your in the animator. Okay. So if we go back to the animator, I named it. Okay, cool. UI fading. Okay, with spaces. So if I go back into here and I do UI fade in. So we've captured everything. So it's going to play that. It's looking for exactly that spelling. Once that animation fades in, well, we're going to want whatever we inputted into that text. So we're going to say info text UI. So I've probably called it that. Dot text is equal to our info message. So whatever we write in our inspector, we're going to come that. It's going to transfer whatever we write in our text area in our inspector to that UI. So we can go tab. There we go. Already knows that. Very smart. We then need our character icon. Dot sprite, because it's a sprite. And that is equal to our custom icon, because we're going to be putting a custom icon in there. So within this, we now need to write an if statement for our disabled timer. Okay. So first thing is if, and we can say disable timer after. So this is the yield return, and this is going to be the wait for seconds. You might have seen this before. And that's exactly it. I love this. So we're going to yield our time, so it's going to wait and return and wait for a number of seconds, which is our disabled timer seconds, which at the moment is currently at 1 second. But we've made that public so we can edit that within our inspector. Okay. Cool. Lovely. We're then going to create, we're just going to quickly write remove info and do some brackets, because that's the method that we're just about to create underneath. So we can call this void. Oh, that's a bit close. Void remove info, so we can get rid of that red line in our. There we go. So when we remove the info, what we need is our info anim again, because this time we are going to look for dot play, exactly what we did before, but this time we're looking for that fade out. Okay. So exactly again how you spelt it within the animator. Ooh. Lovely. And then we can, this is optional, you can change it. So we can say game object set active false. So what this does is essentially disables our box collider afterwards. You can get rid of this. This isn't unnecessary, because once we come into that collider and we come out of it again, that's it. You've seen that UI, you won't see it again. If you, what we could do is just not use that, so you can just keep going into that collider and that information popping up. But I would say, really, disable timer, have it for long enough that you can read it, and then get the player to walk into somewhere else. Lovely. So what we need now is to have a look at our on trigger enter. So our on trigger enter is going to be a coroutine because we put the I enumerator there. So what we're going to do is put start coroutine, do a bracket, and then within that bracket we can write enable info to bracket. Lovely, just like that. Cool, lovely. And our final thing, what we need to do is, first of all, on the if other tag of exit, we need to say and. I forgot, we need to add our remove after exit. And we can just do a bracket under that, that's fine. And then we can say remove info. Why does that not like that? Oh yeah, okay. That means that there. Loot. Why? I did that. It should only be one bucket. Annoying prompts. Fine, cool. Cool, lovely. And I think that's everything. Probably will forget something. Cool. Let's go back into Unity. Okay. So dial me. Lovely. Right. Okay. So what we're going to do now within our scene, come out of this 2D mood and go for our NPC. What we're going to do is we're going to put a cube in front of them. We're going to remove the mesh renderer. We're going to call this our trigger event, and that's where our script's going to go. Remember to set his trigger. Okie dokie. What's the error? Yeah. It's okay. Okay, so initially, let's draw, and before we do that, let's have a look at our game. So, if we look at our game, if we play our game straight away, we're going to see this. Okay, we don't want to see this. So what we need to do is go to our info canvas, go to our canvas group and change our alpha to 0. And then that'll make it fade in. Cool. We can then go to our trigger event. But number one, let's double click it so we can actually see what it is. Whoa. Oh, because I'm in game, that's fine. There we go. So there we go, there's my trigger. There's my trigger event. I've disabled the mesh renderer. I've got a box collider that is trigger. I'm then going to add my UI trigger event script, and there we go. We can see we've got a lovely big old text box for the information to go into. We can do that first. Hopefully the rest should be pretty obvious, but I will go through it. So our first one is our info text UI. So there we go, there's the UI for our text. So I'm going to click and drag that into the UI there. The next is the character icon UI. So there we go, character icon. Drag that into there. Next is a sprite. So we need like a custom sprite. So this is going to come with some custom bits and pieces. I'll just use that icon there. Beautiful. You can use any picture. Information, I'm just going to have this is working. Smiley face. Make sure I can spell working. Then we're going to remove after exit. Yes, we do. Do you want to disable the timer afterwards? Yes, we do. Disable timer. I'm now going to change that to 10 seconds. And the final one is our info anim. Where's our animations coming from? Well, that animation is coming from the canvas, the animated canvas. So what we're going to do is, or is it in the panel? Can't remember. Or the canvas or the panel? Canvas or the panel? Canvas. Or the canvas. So we are going to, yeah, because that's got the animator on it. So we're going to drag the canvas into there, and that's got, oh, there we go, the info canvas animator. Cool, lovely. We can quickly save that, and we can fix it as a problem. So there we go, here's my player, Let's walk into there. There we go, this is working, it fades in. It should remain for 10 seconds and then it will fade away. A long 10 seconds, there we go, beautiful. There we go, I've done it, an OBS. I've done an OBS recording where it works. Lovely. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop recording and go around and help the people. And I'll see you soon.